NFL that week 2 is must win, but for the Jacksonville Jaguars and Cleveland Browns, it's just that after difficult week 1 losses. Crossover Thursday on Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It's a crossover edition of Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Browns. Tony Wiggins here with Jeff Lloyd, and we thank you for making us your first listen. It is your team every day at both accounts. We absolutely appreciate you joining us so we can get down to the business of talking about each other's teams. Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code, all lowercase, Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play just $5. And shout out to the everydayers that join both of our shows. We appreciate you. We are grateful for you to join us. And now we got to talk some smack. We're going to talk keys to victory in segment 3, Jaguar storyline in segment 2. But we're going to get off to a good start talking about Brown storylines with Jeff Lloyd, my brother from another mother. Ain't seen you in a long time. But what is the deal with Cleveland?
Well, Tone, it's been look. It's kind of back to where it was when this first acquisition was made of Deshaun Watson. The game Sunday did not go well, as everybody saw. Certainly when it was put in front of a national television audience, you had some of the same issues that they closed the 2023 season with. You were missing your top 2 tackles in Jack Conklin and Jedrick Wills, which may not be the case right now. I would say DeJuan Jones is probably a lot closer as far as being considered one of the top tackles for this team right now. I thought all week Conklin might play. He was listed as, never given a full designation as far as his injury. It was, participated in practice, nothing else. Then about 2:55 for the 4:25 start Sunday, the inactives come out. Jack Conklin's name was on it. So all of a sudden now the Browns were down their top starting tackles again. It didn't go well. Look, Deshaun Watson, the offensive line didn't play great, but it wasn't all on them. Deshaun Watson unfortunately held the ball, and he has been a notorious long holder of the football his entire career. But there were times where we get past 4 seconds. And the problem is when you get pressured a ton, all of a sudden when you're not getting pressured, you feel like you're getting pressured. So that kind of was something that really, really got into Deshaun's head. Certainly these periods of inactivity through his career, time missed before he came to the Browns, then missing half of that season, and then year 2, getting off to a somewhat decent start, and then all of a sudden the season taken away from November on. This is not going to help anybody get better. It's not going to help anybody stay in his zone. It's really difficult to get a rhythm going. You certainly saw all of those things on Sunday. Without Nick Chubb, the running game struggles, but it's a new offensive line coach. It's also somewhat of a new offensive system, and nobody really did anything in the summer. A lot of guys were participants. There were no preseason reps. So it's really hard to just amp it, very low bone there, to amp it up week 1 and just get back into it. And, it certainly showed. They certainly struggled. I think a lot of people were critical of the defense. I don't think so. You hold the Dallas Cowboys offense to under 265 yards total. There's not much more you can ask of your defense, to be completely honest with you. A couple turnovers here, some field goals, punt return. Next thing you know, the game looked a lot uglier than it certainly was from the defensive aspect. But now here we sit, and all of a sudden we're talking about Deshaun Watson off the field again. And somewhere like around the same allegations and things of that nature, that was the same whole thing. That's when it all started here. And look, this team didn't need this. Sunday was bad enough for them. They certainly were getting a lot of, red hot venom from a lot of people who either prompt them up or the people who were rooting for their downfall. Either way, everybody was ready to, come at them, with the pitchforks. So now we're talking about the same things again. We're not talking about football. We're literally talking about things. And here's a release from this attorney, and here's a release from that. And it's like we're so far removed from the actual product. And I was really hoping that we were certainly past this point, because the roster overall is good, and they've done a lot of work here. And so many people, the Watson contract strangles things. Look, I understand you got to have like a degree, and maybe even not a bachelor's degree, more like in economics, to truly understand the way the contract works and how it doesn't affect the overall roster. It's deep, it really is, but it doesn't. And I keep telling people, name one move the Cleveland Browns have not done because of the money that was given to Deshaun Watson. You want to say draft picks, that's fine. But there's nothing financially, free agent-wise, extending their own players that this contract is crippled. But right now, they're in a bad spot. And I'll be honest, it's probably good they're on the road this week. Nobody says, oh, yeah, we need a road game. But Cleveland needs to get the heck up out of Cleveland right now, Tom.
I saw I heard Boo Birds. I watched that game, and I was curious to see how he was going to play because I'm also a big Jameis Winston fan. So I'm sitting there thinking, I heard Boo Birds like in the second quarter. And then there were times when he was trying to hit like Amari Cooper or Judy down the sideline. You know, the throw when even if they had already stacked the corner and the safety wasn't there. There's a throw that you can make where the ball just falls right in between them. He overshot that and threw it out of bounds like 3 times. And I'm thinking, like, is there something still wrong with his arm, or is it in his psyche? Because I'm pretty sure that before this latest round of allegations hit the public, he already knew it was coming. So that's usually the way it works with your lawyer. Hey, man, there's something coming down here. You know, I'm just wondering, is he ever going to stop looking like a shell of his former self, whether it's physical, mentally, psychological, or whatever? And how close do you think that organization is to saying, you know what, we got too many good players and we're wasting this, and Stefanski's going to mess around and get fired. Let me go with Jameis Winston and show them that it's him, it's not us.
Well, they're in a real tough spot where that is concerned, and you actually bring up a great point. I mean, this team is built to win now. They are not, focused on a year away, maybe 2 years away. They're not. You look at the way this roster is constructed, you've got a good offensive line when you're going to get the 5 guys you actually want to play. Right. All of a sudden, after it took a while during Myles Garrett's career to finally get some competitive and guys of his caliber play on that defensive line, they have that now. Linebackers are good. Secondary is ridiculously good. 3 great cornerbacks. You're waiting on Nick Chubb, which could be October, but you have a bunch of receivers. Losing to David Njoku for at least a week certainly hurts. He's kind of the straw that makes that whole thing work, because you got to pay so much attention underneath to David. It should open things up over the top. But as you said, now with those throws with Deshaun, is that I didn't throw enough over the summer? So I'm not, am I amping it up here? And look, everybody gets amped up a little bit on week 1. That's understandable. Yeah. But those are throws when you're talking about a guy who's almost 28, 29 years old in the NFL. You should be making those in your sleep at this point. Also Deshaun did have a couple of, personal losses during the week. His father had passed away, which is interesting. There'd never been much talk. Everybody knows the relationship with his mom. Never been much talk about his father. But either way, who are we to judge how it weighed on him, how it didn't? Right. A friend also passed away. Also the pending allegations, like you said, you just don't all of a sudden wake up and your lawyer says, oh, we got a lawsuit in our lap. Something's usually brewing. Otherwise, you better get another lawyer. But they just need to tighten it up. And look, for the effort from last week, it's like a lot. And, to improve upon, to go from where they were Sunday to where you hope they're going to go this Sunday. For me, and I've been trying to tell everybody, look, it's not about being the Deshaun Watson from the Houston Texans. It's not about the fact that the amount of money he makes, because in the grand scheme of things, you look at quarterback money, he's 9-10 pegs down lower than he was when he originally got the contract. It's simplicity, and it sounds ridiculous to say it. Throw for a high completion percentage and throw interceptions. The rest of the statistical output will come along if you can do those things. But you can't be throwing balls over guys' heads, where, guys on the bench are catching them. You can't be throwing slant patterns at people's feet. Just way too much inconsistencies with that. And the other thing is, I get it, and nobody wants to get beat up by a pass rush, but you got to have faith that these guys are doing what they're doing. Because if you start running away from ghost pressure, not everybody, and especially week 1, not everybody is in a scramble drill mode. You're just not. It's not something you can really, work on in practice. Everybody, we're going to work on it. Yeah, okay, so I go left because he rolls left. Yeah, but what happens when the coverage is that way? It just doesn't work that way. They got a lot to fix, a short time to do it. But as far as entertaining playing another quarterback, they know they can win NFL games with other quarterbacks. They won a game last year with Deshaun Watson. They won a game with P.J. Walker. They won a game with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. They won 4 games with Joe Flacco. They know they can win with other quarterbacks. So the bigger issue here would be, are you going to sacrifice the season trying to get the guy who was supposed to be good and right? Or do you just say, hey, it can't get any worse if we go to another quarterback, and let's see if it does actually get better?
Woo, Jeff Lloyd with the heat, talking about the Browns and Deshaun Watson. I'm going to turn it over to him, and he's going to give it to me. And I'm going to tell him in Cleveland all about the Jaguars in segment 2. And then in segment 3, we'll talk about the keys to victory. I don't know if Jeff wants to, I might even make a prediction. How about that? We'll do all of that in just a second here as we continue. Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Browns crossover. I got to let you know now, man, about DoorDash. That's right. DoorDash is the absolute truth. And y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. When you need something ordered and something brought to you through DoorDash, it always gets there, and it gets there right on time, man. Here's the promo code. I'm going to give you that off the rip. It's LOCKEDFALL24. You download the app and use the promo code LOCKEDFALL24 for 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. Limited time, terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. Now listen, I don't know what your setup is, but wings are always a must for me and my family. A little bit of something to sip on that's brown, maybe iced tea or something else. That's the things that I like. And maybe my wife gets some sushi, and we get them all delivered, not from just a change, but we get them delivered from our favorite neighborhood spots. And they're brought to us through DoorDash. Now remember, the promo code is LOCKEDFALL24 for 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 plus on your first order. Make sure you download the DoorDash app and get started right away. Today's show is also brought to you and sponsored by Hims. Listen, I was a barber for 34 years, and I said was because I recently retired. But one of the biggest things that I dealt with the entire time I was in the industry was guys getting to a point where they had hair loss. And I'm telling you, man, it was messing with their self-esteem. You know, you don't have to deal with that. I mean, men, the only thing worse than losing your hair is waiting forever for it to grow back, right? And everybody thinks they have the secret formula to make it grow back, but everybody doesn't. Hims does. All you got to do, man, is go to hims.com. That's HIMS.com/LockedOnNFL for your personalized hair loss treatment options. hims.com/LockedOnNFL. Now listen, results vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important information. It's HIMS.com. All right, segment number 2, we get started here with Jeff Lloyd and Tony Wiggins here, Locked On Browns, Locked On Jaguars, Prize Picks crossover Thursday. He told us all about the Browns. Now I'm going to tell him about the Jaguars. I'll start this and let you know before you ask me anything. They lost a game they should have won last week. They had 2 minutes left to go in the third quarter. Miami had 170 yards. And they were going in for a 24-7 lead, and Travis Etienne had the ball punched out, and all hell broke loose, and they lost 20-17. So that's where we are. And around here, the fans are thinking like it's more of the same. It's the same old stuff. I don't think that. I think they're a really good football team, Jeff.
No, I do want to get to one thing. You know, the Ridley situation last year, and obviously him ending up moving on to Tennessee. Jaguars go ahead. You go ahead and bring in 2 wide receivers. Davis, certainly, you draft Brian Thompson Jr., scores his first NFL touchdown on Sunday. Now, it's tough because, when you have a guy like Trevor Lawrence, you're just trying to get this guy so entrenched and in grooves. And unfortunately, a lot of the weapons keep moving around, which certainly doesn't help the development. And not that Trevor needs that much more development, but you just want to get him cozy. You just want to get him comfortable week in, week out, knowing who he's playing with. So how did that start early, and where do you anticipate that going, Tony?
I think it started well. Gabe Davis had 3 catches for like 62 yards, and Brian Thomas Jr. had 4 for just under 50 yards, but he caught a touchdown, and he did it early. And then there was a play early where he drew a pass interference play in the end zone. Trevor underthrew the ball. He had 2 steps on Jalen Ramsey, and it was going to be a touchdown. So that young kid can play. The difference between this year and last year is even though Zay Jones is listed at like 6'2", but he's 190, and he's kind of wiry strong, they weren't real physical in terms of their receivers. In the run game, when the receivers would block, in the quick passing game when they would throw horizontally for a quick screen, those things weren't blocked. the flip side of that is Miami throws them and they block really, really well. And every time they throw it out to A-Chain or whoever, they get 10 yards. They even do it on third down. So the Jaguars have to get better at that. But the other thing was they talked about the fact that they weren't physical. And everybody just assumed they were talking the offensive line. I was hoping they were talking the offensive line, but they were talking the defensive line, and they were also talking at the receiver position because those guys were getting knocked off their line too much. I think Calvin Ridley led the league in drops last year, and the Jaguars missed the playoffs by one game. So if you think everything doesn't matter, it does. Gabe Davis is 6'2", 215. Brian Thomas Jr. is 6'3", 212 pounds or 213 pounds. Bigger, play through contact, can't get knocked off their line, catch contested balls, better catch radius. And also, it has been mentioned that they all block better. They also got Devin Duvernay, who is a wide receiver built like a running back. You're very familiar with him in the AFC North. So they're just bigger and more physical and more stout at the catch point, and I think it's going to help them in the long run.
Now, defensively, you said, look, like they were moving pretty well, and it was basically they went almost, 40 minutes and change, and look, we all know the ability of the Miami Dolphins, once it goes on, it can get real bad real quick. I do see, though, some questions as far as the cornerback position. Campbell has not practiced yet this week as of the time of this recording. I believe it's a hamstring he's dealing with, which is always difficult, certainly. So where is, that situation at with the Jaguars defense? I mean, you looked good for 40 minutes. Kind of fell apart, couldn't play 60 minutes, which a lot happens week one in the NFL, as we know. But overall, the Jaguars defense in 2024, which way is that trending? An improved unit, same, little less?
I think it's improved. It looked better. I know the scheme is better. Ryan Nielsen running that 4-3 or 4-2-5, where they're really mixing and matching a whole bunch of people, and they're playing press man, and sometimes they do a little man bail, off man, and they play bail technique. It's very interesting. Tyson Campbell's their best corner, and he's out. I don't think he's going to play. They haven't officially said it, but it's a hamstring. I think they're going to move with caution when it comes to dealing with him. Ronald Darby is a veteran that some people are mixed about. I like what I saw from him in practice, and I like the steady influence. And we have to remember Doug Peterson has coached him before,
sure,
in the year when they won the Super Bowl. They got banged up a little bit at safety. We think it was cramps with Andre Cisco. We got to see Darnell Savage really live up to it in the slot and earn his money. Last week, they actually struggled at the other safety position with Antonio Johnson, a second-year player that just missed some tackles, and he made a bad read on the play where Jalen Waddle caught a 63-yard pass. And those things just can't happen. Up front, it was a little quiet week for Josh Allen, but he was playing Teron Armstead. But Trayvon Walker actually had 2 sacks. And here's the thing that's important about Trayvon. Trayvon Walker was double-teamed more than anybody in the NFL, according to the analytics. And he had the highest run grade of any defensive lineman in the NFL. So you're getting doubled. You got the highest run grade. You're getting doubled more than anybody else, but you still end up with 2 sacks. So he's off to a really good start. But him being double teamed is significant because when people go, he wasn't worth it. And we try to tell them all the time, there are things on tape that coaches always talk about that you won't see. You don't double team a guy coming into a game if you don't respect him.
No doubt. Now, and as far as the run grade, and this is one thing that's probably also reflective of the Browns, and in a poor way, obviously, is the Browns suffer. They are not good with jet sweeps. It's been a thing. It doesn't matter who's been the defensive coordinator. I'm now covering this team now my 8th year. It has always been an issue. It was an issue against Sunday against the Cowboys. But you talk about a player like Trayvon Walker being double teamed, obviously 2 sacks, grading out well. That is such a simple thing. You still need to do your assignment. And it's literally just set the edge. Mm-hmm. Guys are supposed to go inside you, not outside you. They get outside you, all of a sudden it's a numbers game that never works out in the favor of the offense.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that they do a good job at with Trayvon and with Josh Allen. And then they got dudes that run like the wind, man. Devin Lloyd and Foye Oluwakan, they run like the wind, and they can tackle any and everything. And then because the corners are right up on the line, they identify things really, really quick because they're playing press man. So they can come off those blocks really, really fast and also help on the edge. So I'm looking forward to a good game. I think we're going to talk about some keys to victory from both teams here in segment number 3. We'll get to that. I got to let you know first, though, about the new Locked On NFL show, starring yours truly on the second version, right? It starts out with Tyler Rowland, the madman, and y'all know he's a madman. I know Jaguar fans know y'all think Tyler's crazy, but he's not. He's smart. But you need to tune into him and check him out for a double shot of NFL Espresso every single morning. You wake up, boom, there's a podcast from Tyler Rowland. And then in the middle of the day, I'm coming in with some real barbershop talk, man, kind of laid back, doing our thing. It's unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, and we break it down in 30 minutes. We use clips from around the network with all of our Locked On local hosts, as well as with our guests being the star of the show. Make sure you check in to Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. All right, keys to victories coming up here in the third and final segment of Locked On Jaguars, Locked On Browns crossover. It's all about FanDuel, man. That's right, FanDuel. We have been talking about FanDuel forever and a day, and I'm glad we do because it is the number one sports book in all of America, and it's my favorite place to go to add more enjoyment to what I do every single weekend. You know why? Because I always win, and you can too. They got something even special for you. It's a little different now. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can get, if you bet $5, you're going to get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV. The Browns are on the road. You're a Cleveland fan. Guess what? You'll be able to see the game out of market and all the other games too. All you got to do, if you have a YouTube TV based plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment. You can cancel it anytime. If that's not enough, be sure to check out FanDuel's Profit Boost in the app and use it for FanDuel's double your winnings for all of Sunday. This Sunday on the 15th, pregame moneyline bets Profit Boost will be live starting Thursday. That is tonight. View your account page now to learn more about your boost. FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. All right, third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Browns. It is our the Prize Picks crossover, sponsored and brought to you by Prize Picks every Thursday. I'm telling you, all of these crossovers around the Locked On Podcast Network is brought to you by Prize Picks and presented by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. All right, Jeff, tell me the keys to the Browns winning this game this weekend.
Well, there are some things in favor of Cleveland this weekend. Coach Stefanski in his career with Cleveland is 22-8 after a loss. That's a pretty impressive record and pretty impressive way to basically, get over whatever happened the week before. Other thing is, offensively, it really can't get worse. You really have to think there's really nowhere to go but up. Big key to this for Cleveland is going to be, look, Jedrick Wills still isn't practicing. Why they even activated him to this point certainly has me curious, because if you activated him and he still can't practice, you're almost just basically wasting a roster spot and know you're going to a practice squad guy, for another game day. So it doesn't necessarily make so much sense there. Does Jack Conklin make it back for this week? Practiced yesterday, limited. That's all we know to this point. A lot of people, Conklin's going to left tackle. Jack Conklin was a left tackle at Michigan State. So that's not that big of a deal. Plus, I think with the knee injury, it's probably easier for him to play the left side right now than it is to play the right side. So if they can get Jack Conklin out there, all of a sudden that opens up the possibility that they should be able to run the ball with a little more success. It was kind of weird last week. Jerome Ford played. Pierre Strong played. They invested in Dante Foreman. He played one snap. So it wasn't, for me, I wasn't sure what, I was never a big fan of the Foreman signing, but the one action he did have in the preseason, he actually looked pretty good, got me a little more positive. Then all of a sudden we got to real game action. He didn't play. You've got to be able to run the ball in the NFL. And it doesn't have to be great, but you've got to let the defense know that you are at least going to attempt to run the ball. Otherwise, you get young pass rushers, Josh Allen, you get Trayvon Walker, guys just teeing off. And if you can't run it with any success whatsoever, once you're in 2nd and 9, 2nd and 8, we know the way this league works. Very rare you're going to see a draw play. If your quarterback's got to run, unless you're Lamar Jackson, he's normally running for his life, not running because that's what was called. So they've got to do that. it's going to be an interesting matchup because, as you said, the Jaguars have bigger receivers. Now, the Browns do have a good secondary. MJ Emerson, good guy, physical guy. Greg Newsome, great in the slot. Just not an overall big, thick guy, but he had a great week last week. Denzel Ward, the one thing he is not, is big. So this is, a tougher matchup for these guys. So you really got to be anticipatory on your angles and you're watching the receivers. Obviously, the passing lanes, you got to be really, really smart with that. The Browns just need to tighten things up. You can't have 2 interceptions. Two interceptions in a ball game is most likely going to cost you a ball game 9 out of 10 times. We know the way this league works. 6 sacks. 6 sacks, probably going to cost you 10 out of 10 times in the NFL. That's just the way it works. This team just has to overall get better. And I think, like I said, getting out of Cleveland and going on the road right now with the way the team performed, certainly the off-field stuff that is now again around this team needs to just go into Jacksonville, handle their business. I do believe the last 2 times they played Jacksonville, they won late in the year last year, a couple of years ago when they went down to Jacksonville. This team just needs to get focused. And because the thing was, this first stretch of 6 games, the hope was maybe 4-2. And because it's going to get business is really going to pick up in the second half of the season for the Browns. So they need to get back on the right track, because if you get to the second half of the season looking like, oh man, we kind of need to run the table, or we only maybe have 1 loss, when you got to play all your conference games, you got to play the Chiefs, you got to play the Dolphins, it's just not a realistic thing to focus on and believe will happen. But if they can run the ball with some, respectability, play some better defense, they should be good.
Now, the thing with Jacksonville, I'm going to keep it real simple. They just can't be somebody's antibiotic. If somebody's sick, let them stay sick. Don't be the elixir. We ain't trying to be no heat pad for nobody. They just have a habit of doing that, though, and letting teams get right at their expense. They can't turn the ball over in critical times. And then, so that means they have to have a short memory from last week. You can't be letting that baggage stew, even though all of us were angry with the way that the game went. They were going up 24/7 and it just forgot to hold on to the football. So here's the deal. Do everything you did last week, but just finish it, right? Don't let it linger. Have a short memory. They have a nice rotation along their defensive line. They can't let Cleveland get well on the offensive line this week. And even if they bring some people back, it should still be in their mind that if they watch the tape against Dallas, it was a total annihilation, in my opinion, on the line of scrimmage. So Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen can do some of the same things that Micah Parsons and Lawrence did last week. If they can do that, I think they'll be fine. They need to continue to pressure Deshaun Watson. Do not just run past him and allow him to have running lanes so he can get out and keep them in short down and distance situations. The Jaguars have to get Cleveland off the field on 3rd down. Now watch this. When they're on offense, they have to convert 3rd downs. They have to make sure that they keep their possessions. Don't turn the ball over. Don't get dumb penalties. I think the Jaguars can win this game by 10 points if they do all of those things. They're a good football team, but they have to win. I think it's a must win because they now go on the road the next 2 weeks. They go to Buffalo and then they go to Houston. And I'm not saying they can't beat those teams. What I'm telling you is you don't want to go in there lame and limping because you're bleeding and hemorrhaging because you're 0-2. That is not what you want to do when you go play those teams. You want to go in there with a lot of confidence and go in there with a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. I think they're going to get it done, man, but we'll see this weekend. That's the Locked On Jaguars and the Locked On Browns crossover, sponsored by Prize Picks every single Thursday. Jeff, my man, good luck to you guys. Hopefully everybody stays healthy. And make sure y'all tap in also, once again, to the new Locked On NFL show. Tyler Rowland, the madman in the morning. Tony Wiggins, the barber, in the afternoon. Make sure you tap in wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Till next time, man, y'all take care of each other. Looking forward to a good football game between the Browns and the Jaguars here this Sunday. It's raining outside. I think it might still be raining when y'all get here, but it ain't like y'all used to good weather anyway, Jeff. So that ain't no problem. That ain't no problem. All right, man, you guys take care. Jeff Lloyd, Tony Wiggins, we'll see you next time here on both Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Browns.